Welcome, baseball fans. It is time once again for the Running the Bases podcast. I'm Tucker Wells, joined as always by Coach Jordan Bounds. How you doing, good sir?
Pretty good.
Yeah, second day of May. You
All right,
excited for the spring, and it already feels like summer around here.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to be talking today about some notable bad stadiums and surfaces in and around Major League Baseball history. But let's get started with some news and notes. We'll do like a good and the bad and the ugly. And let's start with the ugly first. D. Gordon got suspended for 80 games for failing a test. He tested positive for, make sure I have this right, exogenous testosterone and cloistibol, both banned by Major League Baseball as PEDs. What was your reaction to this news?
Oh, I mean, I don't. There needs to be this needs to be addressed in the new CBA. The people like D. Gordon are just taking the gamble that he got paid. He got paid a $50 million contract. He will be suspended for 80 games. He sits out. There'll be some uncomfortable or comments from the stands at times, but for $50 million, I think he'll take it.
Right. He's only going to lose $1.6 million in salary that's how it prorates for 80 games.
Right. And it's the same thing that Melky Cabrera did, and the suspension is just not enough. Yeah,
at this point, considering there was also the Mets bullpen, he was slated to be their closer, Majica.
Yeah.
Is it suspicious to you that this happens when there's a certain hitting coach in Miami for the first time?
No, I can't blame it on that. I think it's more interesting there to look at how their hitters are hitting, which is extremely well. They are hitting.
That's true.
Martinez leading the league. They also have the top of the industry batting facilities, these holographic images of the pitcher that you're going to see that day pitching to you in batting practice, throwing the same pitches and stuff. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that is Jeffrey Loria at his quote-unquote finest.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the National League East in general, with the exception of the Braves, everyone had like a 5+ game winning streak going into Monday, or going into Sunday rather. Nationals are the second best record in baseball. They have Bryce Harper and Max Scherzer.
Harper had kind of a bad week.
Yeah, the Phillies are like, what are they, 14-10? I think. Yeah, 15-10. Right. So here's to the powerhouse National League East. The Braves are in good company at the very least. Gordon, if you look at his going from 2014 to winning the batting title last year, his average jumps 44 points. But 2014 was like one of his first couple of full seasons, like 140 plus games. So do we believe at all that he really just, like, somebody gave him bad advice like this spring training?
I don't like to think about any of this.
Right.
We have the rumors that Arrieta now is
right.
Is juiced, and he's in a period where nobody deserves the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
There is no more benefit of the doubt. Suddenly, in his late 20s, he becomes the reincarnation of Dizzy Dean, and we're supposed to we naturally kind of look that way. I don't want to. I don't. Now, the answer to this is that we just legalize everything.
Yeah,
and
well,
just
there
like
is that
go
avenue.
ahead. But I'm not willing to do that. I
Yeah.
don't want to look at people with continued suspicion. I mean, D. Gordon had, all beliefs to him. Whatever. I mean, he said that he doesn't know how this happened, and there were X amount of negative tests, and I've heard that too many times. And Ryan Braun has scratched or has eliminated anybody's defense, verbal defense. You have to show physical proof that
Right. And
you're innocent.
the eye test isn't the same as it was.
No.
But the eye test, I think, definitely goes to the statistics. And so a batting average that jumps 44 points, when he's, I don't know.
That's
That's suspicious.
Brady Anderson.
Exactly. I agree, though, that the suspension has to be more stringent. We've talked about this before. 2 strikes and you're out. A full year for the first time, second time you're out of baseball. And he is a significant player. So, yeah. So,
he led the league in hitting.
Should they strip his batting title from him?
He would say, what are they going to do? Come to his house and take away the plaque?
Put the asterisk and award it to whoever was second last year. I forget who.
Whatever. He got $50 million.
Yeah, that's true. He won in the most important category for him. There you go. So, all right. Well, that's the ugly. Let's look at the good real quick. And for that, let's focus on the Chicago White Sox. They are sitting like at the top of Major League Baseball. Their top 3 pitchers have the best performance of any, front of the rotation in baseball. Is this a surprise, or is this a team that we thought we were going to get last year?
Well, I think it's a little of both. A little of both. I didn't think the White Sox would be this good, and they probably aren't. There are...
Well, we got a month sample size now.
Okay, but... you're never as good as when you're playing at your best, and you're never as bad as when you're playing at your worst. So they're not. I don't think they're the best team in baseball.
Right.
But that could they win their division? Certainly. And it does look like Sale. Sale has been a very, very good pitcher for some time, but he's never won like more than 13 or 14 games or something. A lot of that's the team's fault, obviously. Yeah. We know what a win means statistically these days, but still he's got half as many as he got last year, this month,
Exactly. He's going to go 31-0 according to his current rate.
Right. It does seem like, he's in line. He's certainly at the top of the list for Cy Young after the first month of the season.
Yeah. Well, where do you attribute a lot of this success on the field? For one thing, they seem to be they like the late innings. They score a lot of runs in the 6th and 7th inning and beyond.
So far, this year has been such a slap in the face to all of the Brian Kinney analytic people. You have...
We're going to get to Houston in a second, but yeah.
Well, and that's part of it. But what you see with the White Sox is a team that seemed to really unite behind the LaRoche situation. And Sale took the flag, and he was the leader of this. He's become now the leader of the team, and he's the leader of the pack right now. Going 6-0. You see the same sort of thing going on in Washington.
Yeah.
Dusty Baker has made it fun. And those guys are having a great time. What did they gain? No, they just lost people. They lost the guy who's 5-0, and just gave him away. And look how well they're playing. These are the 2 best teams in baseball.
And the Cubs are right there too.
And the Cubs are there too. And Madden has been at the core of the anti-analytics things from the beginning.
Right.
So an interesting start.
Well, let's look at the White Sox, though, from a big picture perspective. They have that which is so dearly coveted, a solid bullpen.
Yes, they do.
And then, Zach Duke is the Zach Duke that we thought we would get last year. Robertson, here's some numbers: 8 saves and 9 opportunities, a .79 ERA.
I thought Zach Duke was really significant for them last year.
Yeah, and he was a significant pickup for them last year that we noted. It was just the fact that they couldn't win ball games. But then you have Nate Jones and Matt Albers, who collectively have like a .40 ERA, and they've been in, they've had more appearances than anybody else out of their bullpen. So that being said, this is an October-built team in the current landscape. I mean, this is a la the Royals.
Let's too early. It's health.
That's true.
You can't right now. They look like they have a significant chance because of their health. The Royals, who can't score, they can't hit a ball swinging. They can't hit water swinging from a boat right now.
Yeah,
but they're going to be there. They have the chance to be there in that division. A lot of teams. The Tigers playing a lot better than I expected, and a lot better than a lot of people have. Zimmerman has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
And Verlander's pitched all right. I think a lot of things can happen in that division. The White Sox are playing lights out right now, and they have seemingly a spirit behind them. But one of the things you got to recognize, and I hate to say this because I really like them, but they don't have LaRoche getting 600 at bats this year.
I know. I've thought about this. And in his place, they have Brett Lowry.
Right, who's
doing great. They've got, the Todd father over at third. So there's a home run threat that LaRoche couldn't amount to. And then also veteran leadership in Jimmy Rollins.
Yeah.
Good to have him there. And Alex Avila. Yeah. LaRoche, he's not missing it at all.
No.
He's in that RV. He's just touring around the country.
Yeah,
and
good and
good for him.
Yeah.
The teams, they're both parties are arguably better off.
You're right.
So now to the bad, and you and I both are enjoying the sabermetrics squirming in their chairs, but the Houston Astros, like, what in the world? Is this just too short of a sample size for them as well? Like, it's only been a month, got to give them time to round out, or how serious are these problems?
I think critically, you have to give them more time. Logically, you have to give them more time. But I look at their pitching staff. I mean, their starting staff. Keuchel is. Yeah, he's throwing all right, but he's not throwing like a Cy Young winner.
And his last two starts have been, his first three starts were pretty good. His last two, he's gotten shelled.
Yeah, right. But he hasn't been a Cy Young winner.
Correct.
And then the trio of Fs, Fears, Pfister, and Feldman have kind of gotten an F. Giles was supposed to be something for them, and he really hasn't been. Their pitching staff is, they have some really exciting young players all over the field, in the infield in particular. But
Jose Altuve, let's give credit. He's having an MVP caliber year.
Absolutely.
And then also Carlos Gomez, public enemy number one.
He is.
He is not.
No, he's not.
He's in danger of being.
He's doing this on his walk year. This is
couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Well, they're that bullpen. This was their problem last year. So in addition to their starters getting the F grade, their bullpen is still, what do you say, a leaking drum?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Giles was supposed to stop a lot of that, and he hasn't.
No, they do have a seemingly solid closer in Gregerson.
Right.
5 saves and 5 opportunities. Here's some interesting stats about the sabermetric-friendly Astros. 246 strikeouts as a team. That's the highest in the majors. Their team batting average is like 4th lowest in the majors, and they're 8th in home runs. So pretty much right down the line, and that gets you 8 wins. So what say the Brian Kennys of the world?
Well, and this is saying something about home runs, too. Home runs are way up. I wanted to talk about this when we were talking about D. Gordon. And,
we can go back to it. It's the beauty of the podcast. You can jump around whenever we want to.
We're jumping here.
Yeah.
There is a tremendous jump in home runs over the last 3 months. If you take the home run to fly ball percentage, the home runs.
Are you going back to last year?
Yes, last year.
The last 3 months of regular
season. If you take last August, last September, and this April, these are the highest months of percentage of home runs to fly balls. The percentage of fly balls that end up home runs, it is the largest since they've been testing these, since they've kept this figure in 2002. This last month, the 11.8 percentage of the this in April of the fly balls became home runs. This is a tremendous percentage, and August and September showed even higher numbers from last year. They're always higher as the season goes along. As pitchers get tired, it becomes hotter. The air perpetuates fly balls.
So do we have a new performance-enhancing drug scandal on our hands, or what's attributing to this?
Well, if there has it seems as though the exit speed off of balls that are hit for home runs has increased just a slight amount. But there have been several studies done, everything, that this would create like a 12% increase in balls that went over the fence. Just math that I don't understand, nor want to understand at this point in my life. But it does indicate that something has been tweaked just a little bit. Now, I don't think that in the past they wound stitches tighter on balls, and this made them jump a little bit more. You can doctor the balls in a lot of different ways. Whatever has happened, it hasn't been bats, we know that, and I don't think you would have a percentage of ball play. There's still the D. Gordons. There are juice people, and we can't identify them, but that doesn't seem to be what's attributing to this jump over a 3-month period. I mean, and it may go back a little bit further. It may be like after the All-Star break last year, and that's when this that maybe MLB decided, let's change the construction of the ball. Just, we will wind this tighter here, whatever.
So baseball itself is cheating.
Yeah. Oh, well, they did with the steroid period as well. They knew what was going on. Come on. But they're loving seeing Sammy and McGuire go out there and hug each other.
Yeah. So we have a juice ball epidemic now.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, when you're talking about a 12% increase in home runs,
that is significant.
That is and when you have, and we wouldn't know that here. We've been going through.
That hurts, man. That's like too soon almost. But Freddie did get one on Sunday? No, Friday? Something.
Whatever. We're setting records here. And the same thing is in Houston, where a home run friendly ballpark. So there are teams that are just knocking the crap out of the ball.
That's true. Sorry. Well, to that effect, we were talking about. Certainly the fact that it's such a the averages of that statistic are pretty consistent. It's not just spiking with certain players, which was part of the steroid era. But we talked about how, what was this? We talked about, Tim Lincecum, actually, a lot of balls that he's called for that are fresh, just the umpire just got it from the ball boy. Lincecum over time has notoriously looked at him and said, "Oh, this is juiced," and thrown it away.
Well, there are a lot of pitchers that have been very picky about the balls they're using. Yeah, and I would as well. I mean, each ball being roughed up individually by their
with the Delaware mud,
right? I mean, so some are going to be done. I mean, they're done manually, so some are they're going to be better than others.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if that makes him juiced,
Yeah, he certainly seems to think so. So, man, baseball just can't get out of its own way sometimes.
It can't.
All right, so
Lincecum has his own showcase this coming week.
That's right. I thought that was something that was supposed to take place during spring training. So how do you think he's going to do?
Well, I think I told you this earlier. I think he's going to end up a Giant.
After all is said and done?
He wants to start. Giants can look at their staff and say, maybe he'll bring back.
Yeah, maybe he'll have a little extra. He'll give us a little extra boost. Yeah. What of the Giants? I mean, in that NL West, we're kind of surprised by how good the Dodgers have been. But are you surprised at how the Giants have really faltered coming out of the gate? Would they really? I mean,
I'm just surprised at how good the Dodgers are, and that just shows what an idiot I am.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's too early to chastise ourselves.
There were so many injuries at the beginning of the year for the Dodgers, and I knew they had the resources, but I don't know.
Yeah, and Kershaw is still pretty darn good.
And so is Jensen.
Yeah, and hey, Kenta Maeda
gosh,
he's looked great.
Rookie of the year,
front runner for sure. I will say that the Central in the National League, the NL Central, has finally morphed into shape, going top to bottom. Cubs, Pittsburgh, Cardinals, Cincinnati, and then Milwaukee in the basement, right on point. Hit that perfectly. All right, we'll go in first to third. It came to the news about a week ago that the Braves players were filing a grievance with the union to try and get the ownership at Turner Field to improve the field conditions. Apparently, the field conditions were not up to par. The Dodgers were in town. Both sides were complaining about the condition of the grass where it meets the infield dirt, the dirt behind home plate, so on and so forth. So we're going to dive into MLB history of some of the worst playing surfaces and arenas and stadiums in baseball history. First off, what do you make of that grievance getting filed? We in Atlanta have prided ourselves on our ground crew for so many years.
So many years, but not always. And I told you this year that was going to happen.
I know. They're orchestrating the most perfect Machiavellian...
I told you that was going to happen, that it would happen to the field itself. Now, I mean, the worst major league stadium that I've ever seen in terms of the field conditions, and I don't know how there could be one that was worse than the Atlanta Fulton-County Stadium prior to Scherholtz arriving there.
For those who don't know, take us through...
You could see high grass growing on the outfield wall because they wouldn't use a weed whacker just to take it down. They would have these, what do you call it? I don't know, what are these races where they pile, people in these RVs, or like they make mounds of dirt and stuff.
And the monster truck?
Yeah, and all these sort of things. It wasn't just monster truck, but it was all...
the dirt bike races.
Right, and all
they would have those at Fulton-County, yeah.
During the season, they would have concerts there. The grass was torn. It was awful. It was the worst I've ever seen, even in pictures. And part of this was just corruption in the Atlanta government, which had connections with the stadium authority, which was also running the stuff down at the airport at the time. It was atrocious.
Right. It was the city having control of the stadium authority, that they didn't put anything into the grounds crew, if I'm remembering this correctly.
Right.
They didn't extend themselves in any sort of way to maintain it. And then in 91, who was it that Scherholtz brought in to...
Mangum.
Mangum.
So did... the whole stadium turned around. I mean, the stadium authority was in charge of the food and everything. Up to the Atlanta Fulton-County Stadium was as bad a major league ballpark, I think, as there may have... Well, no, not at least in my lifetime. Now, I still loved it. I mean, it was by design. From the dark age of the cookie cutter stadium. I mean, distance from the field, no amenity, but it was where I watched Major League Baseball, so I still loved it.
Right. I have a similar affinity to Turner Field, which of course, they will be leaving, and in addition to not taking care of the field itself, Turner Field walls and such could use a good scrub down, but that's not going to happen. Right. And the cow is missing. If you want to go for bad sight lines and distance from home plate, Exhibition Stadium in Toronto in the 70s and 80s, that was a pretty interesting design. 800 feet, I think, was the furthest seat away from home plate.
Stadiums that were not built for baseball have never worked.
Exactly.
They just haven't. But I'll tell you...
Poor Bobby Cox had to go from that to Atlanta. But shortly after arriving in Atlanta, he was, things were on the up and up. But that stadium in Toronto, though, in addition to the fact that it was a football field first, being an outdoor stadium, the flock of seagulls seem to descend. And is that a charming thing in any way?
That happened all the time at Candlestick, and there was nothing charming about Candlestick.
No.
Nothing, except that Willie Mays played there.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of great ball players played there, but nothing charming about the ballpark, and there were seagulls all over the place. There are so many ballparks that are on water. If you look at that, if you really analyze,
that's true.
You'd find so many of them are on water, whether it's rivers, oceans, whatever. You were talking about exhibition park, but Canada hasn't had that many ballparks, but certainly Le Parc Jerrie is one of the greatest ballparks of all time.
Yeah, one of the quote-unquote greatest. Are you saying that facetious, or?
It started out as a 3,000-seat recreational league park for the city of Montreal. This when they first moved there, and they turned it the first year into 21,000 seats. But like you could hit a ball into left field and be a home run, and it would land in the community pool. This was not like the pool, in Arizona.
Clearly Arizona took this to the next level.
Right. I mean, but this was, this is where, I don't know, the Parc Jerrie. I mean, it had.
And they played there for what, 7 years?
No, I think just 3 years.
Oh, okay.
I believe.
That's still a long time to play in.
They played there for 641 games, however many that's more than three.
That's close to 6 or 7.
Yeah, it is. During those 641 games there were 980 home runs hit, even though the ballpark was 340, 420 to center and 340 to right. Seemingly a big ballpark. There's this big gust of wind that just was blowing balls out.
Yeah, I like the community pool though. That's a wrinkle that I think someone should bring back somehow, some way. I don't know how you. Yeah, that's true. But then they go from there into Olympic Stadium in Montreal. Is Olympic Stadium just the boulevard of broken dreams?
No, Olympic Stadium was Le Parc excuse or Le Parc. I mean, it was just such an. It was a disaster.
Yeah, but a Kevlar roof would have been cool had it actually worked. Yeah, and that was before the Twinkie Dome couldn't hold up with all the snow. The Kevlar roof that was finally complete in Montreal, I think it tore at like 25 mile per hour winds.
Yeah, but it never did in the Guggenheim in Bilbao. It wasn't the idea of the
right.
roof. It was the construction behind it. It was a disaster from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to think.
It's an Olympic product.
Yeah,
I mean, there
Good
aren't.
point.
Also, is Turner Field, but Turner Field is.
They were successful on that. Turner Field should get credit for throughout history for being successfully converted from something other than a baseball stadium into a baseball stadium. But it's amazing to think that, Montreal, when they were awarded, right? That was expansion with Montreal, the Expos, right?
Right.
Expansion team. Okay. The city's awarded an expansion team, and the best venue they have available is a municipal park.
Oh, but I guarantee you they had the best hockey rinks anywhere you could find.
Yeah.
Where would you want to see a game, a field that you have not seen?
In this day and age?
No, I'm not saying now. A field all time. Where would you, if you wanted to see a game played at? You don't get to choose the game.
So I get to just choose the stadium and the field to watch the game.
Right.
I mean, with apologies to probably Ebbets Field and some of the more romantic, I would like to see one in the Polo Grounds.
Oh well, sure.
Yeah. But just because of how much of like a pinball machine it was shaped. Real close to the stands down the foul pole, but just cavernous out into the outfield.
Right.
The havoc that would have.
Well, you're talking about cavernous outfields. Old Braves Field, one of the first real big stadiums. It was when Ty Cobb saw it. His first response is, "No one will ever hit it out of this field." Now, of course, he was wrong, but it was built to foster triples and inside the park home runs. Center field was 550 feet. It was 402 feet down the lines, and there was a 75-foot wall.
Yeah.
You were going to have to hit it 500 feet in those days. Now, of course, people did hit home runs there, but and that, I mean, you're talking about a cavernous outfield. That would have, nobody sat out in the outfields. All these stands around there had 40,000 people around the infield.
Yeah. I wish that stadiums in this day and age would foster, try to encourage triples and doubles and inside the park home runs just to speed up the game itself. I mean, I think that that's the indirect consequence of the home run era and wanting to see home runs is that it has slowed down the game. I mean, I thought Marlins Park was going to be the trendsetter.
They've moved the fences in.
They've moved the fences in. It broke my heart.
Same things they did in Detroit. Same things they did in San Diego.
Seattle. New York.
Right.
The Mets. Yeah.
It happens everywhere because the fans want, chicks dig the long ball.
Chicks do dig the long ball. I guess dudes as well.
I'll another field that I would like to go to is Muhlenbach Field.
Muhlenbach Field. Not familiar. Do tell.
Is home of the Kansas City Royals for Kansas City Monarchs.
The Monarchs.
I mean, for 30 years. And I mean, there weren't Negro League teams that lasted that long. I mean, this is the first home stadium to have a night game. And you think of send me there at any time and who you would have seen. Who you would have seen at those games. That would, I can't think of a game that I would rather see just by chance anywhere.
Clearly that makes the difference because you have stadiums that really in a vacuum are poor design and horrible places to play and watch a game, but they're considered charming because of who has played there.
Sure. I mean, and you look at, our little jewels now, Wrigley Field and Fenway.
Yeah.
They've been really antiquated. Now, both of them have gone through renovations, in recent years and stuff. But there have been times where they were just awful. I think there was water leaking in certain parts of Wrigley Field and stuff. Now, it's had a tremendous upgrade, and all this now. But sometimes it is the mystique of the ballpark. I have really believed that both fields have enabled ownership to just kind of ignore the fans because the stadium itself is such a cash cow. Fenway and Wrigley are always going to come near sellouts every game if they don't, because tourists to these towns want to go to these ballparks. I mean, so and they're not as charming as you would think they are. Ebbets Field, now that would have been something, with all of the band and this, all that sort of stuff, and all of the history that it has. Sure, it had that kind of pearl type image. I think there are a lot of minor league ballparks. I'd love to go to Bowman Field in Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
That's not the little league part.
No, but
what is Bowman Field?
Well, it's a beautifully constructed ballpark. It's hard to describe. You just need to go online and look at pictures of it. But it does have an interesting story. In 1987, Dave Bresnahan was pitching on there for the home team there, and he got he called time and went to the bench and got a new glove. He had to replace his glove, and I mean there was a runner on second and third, and he but unbeknownst to the umpire or anybody else, he had a potato put into that glove before he went and received it. And then so he goes into his set position and throws the potato over the third baseman's head. The third baseman, the runner at third, starts to come off thinking it was the ball, and he goes over and tags him with the ball.
Nice.
There's no rule against that or anything. You can throw a potato off the field.
I'm surprised that hasn't been utilized anytime more recently.
I'm sure there's a rule against it now.
Yeah, probably. Unfortunately so. But and what's the name of that again? So those listening and watching can see it. Look it up.
Bowman Field in
Bowman
Williamsport, Bowman Field.
All right, I tell you somewhere that I would like to have seen a game and then also be the person to push the button to blow it up was the Kingdome.
Oh yeah.
Imagine this, if you will, considering this day and age of single purpose stadiums. At the same time, the Mariners, the Seahawks, the Supersonics, and the Sounders all played in the Kingdome. Wow. At the same time, you've got that's Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, and professional soccer. And something that was interesting in looking this up, the walls were teal, the outfield walls, but for the longest time, the seats themselves were red and orange, which no team in Seattle used that color scheme. I think it would have been interesting, though. I'm a big proponent of sound and reverberation and how it creates a home field advantage. A all concrete dome. I mean, I bet that place was loud as anything, especially starting, like 95. I would definitely want to go back in time and be at that game in person just to hear how loud it was game 5 against the Yankees. I thought this about Busch Stadium in St. Louis, the second incantation, the concrete donut, that it got so loud there that when they moved to their new ballpark, this open views out to center and all that the sound level just got cut in half.
I've never thought of that before. There are acoustical geniuses
yes,
throughout the world that have you go to different basilicas all over Europe and stuff where they, like the one in Pisa, where there is that constant reverberation, and if you could put that into a ballpark, what an incredible effect that would have. Now, and then you wouldn't have teams like the Atlanta Falcons using recordings to sound like they're louder than they are.
Oh, exactly. I'm waiting for it. Speaking of Seattle, the Seahawks understood that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But there have been acoustic engineers that have gone to temples in ancient Greece trying to see how they and I think you've been with me where you could go to one of these outdoor theaters and be 100 yards away, whisper, and they could hear you just like you're there. I know the people who built the Concerto House studied in Greece for quite some time. We're rambling here.
Yeah, but amphitheater is technological and architectural marvel.
Right, and we are talking. There is constant conversation in sports about how to enhance the experience of going to the game rather than watching it with your mass media
exactly
at home.
Yeah, what gives it that edge that you have to be there live. Right. The Golden State Warriors right now, because they're in an antiquated arena that they're about to leave in a few years, it's made of all concrete, and so hence it gets the Thunderdome moniker.
Right.
I think something that's interesting, talking about how Fulton County, to bring this full circle, how Atlanta Fulton-County was the worst, at least they played on grass. And
that's true.
By all accounts, the AstroTurf in St. Louis in the summer was it was hotter than hell.
It melted cleats and stuff. And,
right.
That's true. But that was another one of the cookie cutters of that time. And Cincinnati had the same sort of heat problems. The grass that was in Philadelphia, the turf that was in Philadelphia was supposedly so thin that the ball was bouncing all over the place. It's where Dick Allen is, like his famous quote, if my horses won't eat it, I won't play there.
Yeah, and in Philadelphia too, both and this was something that the football players all cited, but the turf was so thin that in certain areas, sprinkler heads and grates underneath the carpet that you would get your foot caught in, and a career-ending injury. And if you tried sliding into second base and at any point in the outfield, diving for balls, you get cut up and bruised from trying to, lay out on that surface. So,
and plus you'd be sliding through Lenny Dykstra's spittle throughout all of the center field. Just
yep. Yep, brutal, absolutely brutal. But I won't play on it if my horse won't eat it either. Although, I don't think horses are going to eat speed.
I think we
turf
should talk about
anytime
one
soon.
other stadium,
right.
and just like Le Parc Jerrie, the stadiums that moved to certain cities and before they built, the promised,
Right,
in this
right,
case,
right.
Astrodome. The Colts Stadium was an interesting place.
Let me preference this before you go into it. Would you have ever watched a game at Colt Stadium if given the tickets?
Oh yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. See Robin Roberts and Nellie Fox and
Yeah.
some of the people that went to them in the expansion.
Well, it would have been
They did just play there for 3 years, but it was nicknamed even before the Astro, or what was then the Colt 45s were there, was mosquito heaven.
Right.
It wasn't just that there were a lot of mosquitoes; there were big mosquitoes. There were, supposedly the story is you'd slap one, it would look up like, what the.
Did you
Stop
just try
that.
it? I'm trying to eat here.
Damn.
Yeah, bugs in Houston are. We think we have bugs here in the South, but they're on a whole other level in Houston. And to think they had an outdoor stadium in the middle of summer, they definitely did the right move by going indoors after that. I don't think I could have done it.
What stadium is run the best
What stadium is run the best
in the major leagues today?
in the major leagues today? Without having seen a poll or something to technically verify this, I'd say it'd be AT&T Park in San Francisco.
Isn't that SBC Park now?
It was. SBC became AT&T,
AT&T.
so now it's AT&T.
I think that's certainly in the argument. And you said without any kind of scientific.
Well,
there
without any
is
sort
no-
of polling data to,
it's completely subjective.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd still have to go with Dodger Stadium.
You know what? I overlooked it.
I mean-
I'd have to say that too.
I mean, it's Switzerland clean.
Yeah.
Everything is in, and it's now one of the oldest stadiums around.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I remember what it was. God, am I old?
Yeah. Well, and to that note, who needs a stadium sooner, Oakland or Tampa Bay? A new stadium.
I'd have to go with Tampa Bay because
I would too.
I think they'll move.
Right. And they're playing indoors still. That is a throwback to the Kingdome.
Right.
Is the Thunderdome, Tropicana, whatever.
Yeah, I think because I think they may be in some other location if they don't get one soon. Oakland, I think, is there for a while, even though Oakland has moved the most, and
Right. The football team, at least.
No, even the Athletics.
That's true.
Philadelphia to Kansas City to Oakland.
All right. Here's a final question for you on this. What new stadium was the greatest improvement from the previous? So what team, when they moved into new Stadium X, was the greatest improvement from what they
Cleveland,
vacated?
certainly big.
I'd say the same thing. Yeah, the mistake on the lake,
Right.
going into Jacobs Field,
right.
Absolutely for me.
I think that, and Cleveland was one of the Jacobs Field is one of the first of these new ballparks.
Yeah, they were right in line with, I think, just a few years
Camden Yards.
after Camden Yards. And Baltimore, I believe you saw a game at the War Memorial, right?
I saw several games there.
In Baltimore.
right,
What
yeah.
was that like, watching a game there?
It's another cookie cutter ballpark in a bad section of town, bad part of Baltimore before their revitalization. I went there over the years several times.
Yeah, because Jacobs Field is still high up, or it's called Progressive Field now, I guess. But that's high up on my list of a place I want to get to.
And I to be honest, I don't remember Memorial that well. I remember seeing Brooks Robinson though.
Right there again, what you see there is what makes the charm.
I
Because
remember
really,
seeing Mike Cuellar stick his glove on his nose and blow just every inning out on the mound.
Madison Bumgarner would be proud. That's charming.
That's one of the images I have.
And that's fair.
Hey, and I'll tell you, one of the great images is watching the Orioles take infield. They used to take
the Oriole way.
extended infield, and it was sharp. amateur, you were talking about the Kingdome earlier. One of my greatest memories of the Kingdome is one of my former players who went on, played at Notre Dame, hitting a home run in the upper deck there. And I saw that late at night, like 3 a.m. on the ESPN or something.
Nice.
That's one of my great memories. And I don't know where I was going after that. that diverted
images that come from a certain ballpark, I guess. Because let me close out with this. Would Fenway Park ever get built today? No. With the triangle out and no, absolutely not.
Well, because they don't have parking.
Well, right, but I mean, like a stadium designed like that. What team would let you get away with that?
I don't know. The idea that stadiums have unique shapes now, I think, is one of the charming aspects of them.
Sure.
It used to be that all stadiums were in the downtown urban area, and the street designs, look at Detroit, had the overhang, and all this stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what dictated the shape of the stadium. Now, that doesn't happen much anymore because there is going to be a massive parking area around any ballpark that's going to be built in these days.
Well, that's where I give credit to Washington. They built their ballpark with more of an emphasis on how public transportation gets to it.
Oh, okay. That is well.
Yeah, so credit to them.
I'll tell you one thing, another innovation in parks is now, and they seem to want to do this here in Atlanta, is that like what they've done in San Diego now, where they've made the ballpark as a nighttime place to go, where there are clubs and bars and hotels and all of these things. It is a destination in itself, and it is you might see one ball game but spend 2 days down there.
Right, sure.
And you saw this really with Camden Yards a little bit. I mean, it's happening more and more. Hopefully that happens out in Cobb County. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, the traffic. With all things,
gosh,
how is that going to work with Atlanta?
Well, you and I at least know back ways.
I know. If you're living in Sandy Springs in Atlanta, this is really where you want to move to if you're like baseball, because we got some ways to get to the stadium that don't involve the freeways.
The freeway looks like a disaster right now.
Oh, yeah, and it hasn't even, they're not even halfway done. All right. Well, a thank you as always to everyone checking out the podcast on YouTube and listening on SoundCloud or downloading on iTunes. You can find everything Running the Bases at our website, runningthebases.com. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, leave your comments, leave your feedback. Let us know what we're doing right and what we're doing horribly wrong. So, but for Coach Bounds, I'm Tucker Wells. This is the Running the Bases podcast. We're coming into home and we're safe, Coach. Have a good night. Go Hawks.
Good night.